Hello again, everyone. Welcome to We Can Do This. If you are a regular follower, thank you very much and welcome back. And if you're new, welcome to my channel. Every Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we talk about different topics, self-help topics or things that I just maybe want to talk about that I'm kind of seeing and, just need to get something off my chest. And, my hope is that, if you're watching and you're listening, I hope you're enjoying it and I hope maybe it's helping you in your life. That would be amazing for me. And I want to remind you to please, I would love to have you on board as a subscriber. So please remember to subscribe below and hit the like button. Give me that thumbs up. I love seeing those thumbs up. That makes me very happy and it lets me know that you're liking what I'm doing. So I appreciate that. Well, as you can tell, this week I am not outside on my deck. I'm kind of bummed about that. Actually, I'm really bummed about that. But unfortunately, here in Western Pennsylvania, we've had a little bit of a rough week, haven't we? We have had temperatures over 90 degrees now for a solid week. Needless to say, we're making sure that the central air has been on, and we've been making sure that our pets have plenty of water. And if you're in the area, if you're in Western Pennsylvania, or if you're in an area that's also seeing these high temperatures, please remember your furry little friends, the ones outside especially. Make sure they have a place where they can get shade, shelter, and make sure that they have plenty of water. So, because they can get really dehydrated and sick as well. So we need to be sure we're taking care of them as well. So that's why I'm in the house. I'm in the comfortable central air. It was just way too hot to go outside. So here I am, here we are, and we're going to get started because this topic is kind of one that, I know about and I've known for a while and I've read tons of stuff on the internet. But in a way, I kind of got annoyed about it, and I'll tell you why. I decided I wanted to do this today because I've seen so many intellectuals on the internet. Everybody has an idea and everybody's given their opinions on why no one wants to work anymore. Why? And then they list like 30 reasons or more as to the things that they feel is the reason behind. And they go real deep. They act like this is some very deep issue. And of all of the things that I've read out there about why no one wants to work, they're all pretty bogus. If you want to know the truth, I'm really disgusted, about why all these intellectuals have these ideas and, they go so deep. This is not a deep reason, people. This is pretty easy to figure out why no one wants to work anymore. And I just sat down, this past week, and I kind of boiled it down to a handful of reasons. There's not 30 reasons. There's not more than 30 reasons. There's just a handful of reasons. And I think we all know where most of them stem from, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. So I'm going to start with one of the number one, and we're going to go from there. But the first two that I'm going to talk about are not really the big ones that I'm seeing, but I did feel that they're kind of worth mentioning because I do think that's some of it. But the third one that I'm going to talk about, I think, is a big one. And then I'm just going to kind of roll with that one and go off in a couple different directions with that. So stick with me on this. We're going to get started right now. So let's start with number one here. Now, this isn't the number one reason. It's just one on my list. And one of the things that I think a lot of people really are looking for today, there's a lack of meaningful work, or they feel that there's no meaningful work out there. And I like to be a little bit optimistic about this. I like to believe that most of us, not everyone, but I like to believe that most of us want a job that's meaningful to us. It doesn't have to be something deep, but it does have to be something that we feel like we've accomplished something, or in my case, I feel like I'm part of a team that makes a difference because I work for a medical company. So because I'm a buyer, I don't do anything with the patient hands-on like I do is when I'm performing my duties as an EMT. But at the same time, I know that the parts I buy are going into equipment that others make in our production team, and they go around the world globally, and they help patients everywhere around the world. And I have a lot of satisfaction in knowing that. And I have a lot of meaningful purpose in my job right now. In my past job, I was also a buyer, but it was for a company that made that plastic piece that makes the frame of your window. And I thought my job had meaning, but not in the same way. I really feel like it has a lot of meaning now. But back then, I didn't feel like I was making a difference. But looking back now, I can see that in producing this item, they were these extrusions were being sold to families. They were being sold to companies who made windows, and these windows were sold to families all over the world. The one that I worked here in Pennsylvania, we only shipped inside the U.S., but it was a global company. So the windows that were made went into family homes, to help keep families safer, to help keep them more comfortable and safer from the elements. So looking back on it now, it did have meaning, and I think back then it had more meaning because I felt like I was giving back to society, and that may sound a little corny, but I felt like I was doing something. I wasn't taking anything away from society. So, but looking back, I think it did make a difference. It was just in a different way, and it wasn't as vital to human beings' survival, maybe than what a window would have been. But I don't want to take anything away from it either, because I think every job out there, any job that you do, whether it's a manufacturing environment, whether it's a service, it doesn't matter. Each individual who we are doing things that affect society. It doesn't matter what you manufacture. What you're manufacturing is eventually going to go to families or going to go to other companies who help families and who help people globally. So we need to keep focused, on no matter what it is we do. It does have meaning and it does have purpose. But I do very easily see where you can do a job and it doesn't feel like it has any meaning to it at all. And I think that's a little bit of why, people just don't want to work anymore. They just feel like, why bother? I'm not doing anything that's a big deal. Yeah, but what you have to remember is sometimes little things add up to big things, right? So moving on to the next thing, it's burnout and mental health. Now, I can speak, I think, for everybody who's watching, and I think for mostly everybody, that we have all experienced burnout in whatever job we do. We go in, and this isn't every job, but if you have one that's very monotonous, it's the same thing every day. You see the same people every day. It's, not really dynamic, and you're working a lot of overtime. I can relate to that. I had many years, I worked 12 to 14 hours. During those 3 years, we all had to struggle to get through together, right? And it was tough. But the funny thing was I didn't experience burnout during that time. It was hard, but I got through it and I got past it. I didn't start feeling burnout until after it stopped and my overtime started going down. And that's when how like whenever you get an adrenaline rush and then, it's great and you're just going and going because you got to do it. And then it starts to decline. That's what I think happened. I just felt burned out. I was very mentally exhausted, and I think a lot of people right now, I think some of them get to the point where they just can't do it anymore. They're exhausted. That time for all of us, it was draining. We had to change it up. And we had to change it up very quickly. But we did it. And we made it through, and we're still here. We're still kicking. But there's a lot of that out there now. The burnout, the mental health issues. It was a really hard time for all of us. So I think some people they just can't do it anymore. They're just done. And I can understand that. It's very draining that whole time for all of us. So yeah, I think that's another one. But the third one I'm going to talk about, this is the big one, and this is what I'm going to roll with and go in a lot of different directions anyway. But here, hi Mark. Hey, exhausted or falling apart from always going hard. Yeah, that's what it is. You go gung ho and you just go 110% and you're going 1,000 miles an hour. And when it finally slows down, you just come down. You're just coming off that high and it catches up with you. It does. So the third thing, and I'm going to go there because I think it's a big one, and I was going to do it. Remote work. We all had a taste of a very different way to work. And I worked hybrid for 3 years. And I know a lot of people worked remote during that time. And we had a taste of it. And while it was challenging, a lot of us, like my entire life, I think a lot of us, our entire lives, were older and we would work for a while. I think a lot of us who never had that before, we really had our eyes opened. It was something new for us to experience. And I know in my case, I was happier than I'd ever been in my life working. And, I think it was because I had that feeling of freedom. I didn't feel like I had vultures, over me all the time and micromanaging me all the time. I didn't have that. What are you doing? What are you working on? Well, why are you working on that? I didn't have that over my shoulder all the time. I realized that I had a little bit of freedom, and I was much more efficient. I am so much more efficient working from home than what I am going into the office. And now I know working from home is not for everybody. I get that. And we all have our differences, and that's fine. It's just an observation. But I can tell you that I was more efficient, and I mean that from not only a work perspective. I was much more efficient at my job. It was just a lot more difficult because of the scenario going on, and everybody was getting sick, or people were working from home, and communications were more difficult, and getting parts and items were more difficult. But I found out that when, I had two 15-minute breaks every day. So, working from home, not only was I more efficient at my job, but I was also more efficient in my personal life. I never left the house, to go anywhere. I was always at home and I was able to be contacted at any time. We have Microsoft Teams, but I was able to put a load of laundry in the washer or dryer. I was able to do a load of dishes. I was able to go out and get the mail, to get a break, go outside. I even worked on my deck whenever it was a nice day out. It was just such a feeling of a balance. And that's, what I'm going to mention next is we have a need for work-life balance. Now, we've always kind of felt that, but those of us who never had a taste of that freedom before now, it was really an experience. And I have to tell you, I'm back in the office now every day. And I have to tell you, I don't like it. I'm just going to be blunt. I don't like it. But I'm doing it because it's what the company requires. We're a manufacturing location. So I do it. I got to do what I have to do. But I'm a lot more tired now. I am a lot more drained every day than what I was when I was working the longer hours, because I was working from home and I had a much quieter atmosphere. I had control. I had control over my tasks, whether they were work related or they were home related. I had control of my schedule. Now, I still kept the same hours that I do now. That didn't change. But during those hours, I was able to be more productive. Look, it was a different work environment. It was a much more relaxed work environment. It was one that supported comfort. I'm in my comfort zone in my own home. I didn't have all the interruptions. Now, did I have people contacting me on Teams and email? Well, sure. I still do now. But I didn't have the interruptions that I do in the office. You don't have the gossip mongering that you have in an office environment. You don't hear the whining in the office environment. It's a very, very harsh environment to be in, if we want to be honest about it. And that's what I'm here to tell you is, we had that experience now. And what's happening is a lot of these companies are saying, oh, done, over, you're coming back, moving on, here we go. And it's not that simple. It's not that simple. We're not a light switch on the wall where you can just turn us on and off. We're human beings, and it takes time sometimes for us to assimilate to different circumstances. We all have to take that time sometimes to kind of work into things, or in this case, back into something, but companies these days don't want to hear that. And that's the reason I think, a lot of people, they just don't want to work anymore because they're fed up. They don't want to go back to the office and they want fully remote. Now, in my case, I would not want fully remote. In my position, I don't think I could do it. Fully remote, I don't think that would be the responsible thing to do for my company. It would not be in either of our best interest. And I admit that. But I do say that I would love to work from home 2 days a week. I'd be willing to go in for 3 days. That would be fine. But I would love to work from home at least 2 days a week. It would be a break. I would have my space. And I'd be able to get in a day or two where I could be a lot more efficient. I could catch up on things. And then when I went back into the office the next day or, whenever, I would be much better and more on my game because I had that time, and, in my case, I have an office, but I have to tell you, shutting my door doesn't always help either. My office tends to be the social center. I always have people coming and going out of my office or, coming in for issues or to talk about stuff. And not that that's bad, it's just different. But for me, in what I need to do sometimes, and we all need to concentrate sometimes, and it's just not as conducive in that type of environment. So, and moving on from that, but still under the topic of the remote and what we experienced then, I'm going to talk about the two different generations. We've got the younger ones and we've got the older ones. We've been there, done that, and we've been in the office our whole lives, whereas the younger ones who are just getting out there, they are having this experience earlier in their life. And, the younger ones, they don't want to work for somebody else. And if they do want to work for somebody else, they just don't want to work for one company. And I have to tell you, I have an issue with this. I'm not happy about it. I know it's going on though. And I'm really horrified that companies agree to hire younger people who are doing this. I am one who is dedicated to my company and dedicated to what I do for that company. I'm not talking about a situation where you have a full-time job and then maybe you have a part-time job afterward. That's not what I'm talking about. The younger generation, all they want is money. They're very materialistic. Not that we don't want money either, but they're younger. They want money. They want to go out. They want to have their fun. We all did when we were younger. But our generation never had the opportunity to have 2 full-time jobs at one time. And that's what a lot of them are doing. They are working full-time jobs for 2 different companies, getting 2 huge salaries. And it's ridiculous. Now, I know that there's a shortage, but I'm going to give my 2 cents at the end about what I think about that. But these younger ones who are doing this, they want to be in charge of their own life completely. They don't want to make a sacrifice for one company, they'll sacrifice for two because they all just want to work till they're 30 or 35, and then they're going to just live it up the rest of their lives. And I don't really know how to tell them this because they're going to have to learn it for themselves, but it just doesn't happen that way. And like I said, they're just getting out and they're getting into reality, and but they're not really getting a full taste of it because they're not in the work environment. And I think in the long run, I think that's not going to be beneficial for them. But that's me. That's my opinion. So there it is. But on the flip side of the coin, and we're talking about different generations here, that's the younger generation. That's how they want to work. Then you have the generation, and I'm definitely not anywhere near retirement age, trust me. And I'm very mixed about that some days, but I'm glad. I have a long time to work yet, and I'm okay with that. I like working. I like keeping busy, and I like paycheck. Who doesn't? But there's also the generation of the ones who are in their 60s, the ones who have really worked hard, and I mean hard, their entire lives. A lot of them grew up working in steel mills, which is really hard labor. It was a much harsher type of a work, back then. And, they're all getting into their 60s now. And, to be honest, it's really just a point where they've done it. They've put in their whole lives. 30 to 50, sometimes 50 years, even more, of doing a job. And back then you could do it. It's not really feasible to do that these days. And, companies tend to push you out the door. But when you get to that point, you desire for that freedom, that work-life balance, that you just can't achieve while you're working full time and you're going into an office and, you're hardcore, for all of those years. And, basically to put the bottom line out there, they're just over. They're done. Amen. Yes. And I think that's very true. I have seen so many people retire over the past 2 years because they just had enough. They're tired of the rat race. They're tired of going into the office all day. The main word there is tired. They're mentally tired. They're physically tired. They're tired of the crap. They're just done. And they've been there, done that, had it. And they're running the other direction. So that's why, a lot of people are retiring. They're leaving the workforce. They just don't want any part of it anymore. They just want to have their life be their life. And, I don't blame them for that. But that's also causing why some people just don't want to work anymore. I think it's both generations have the reasons, but they're very different reasons. And like I said, this is my opinion, but I don't think the younger generation wanting to all work remote and all work from home, they're not going to have the experience of having that social environment, learning what true reality is, how to be tough. We've had to be tough over the years and get through things and be strong. I don't think they're going to get that, and the way the reality is going, we all know it's getting tougher every day. I don't see that working in their favor, but that's all I got to say about that. So, I think it boils down to, we've all now had a taste of having the experience of a very different lifestyle. One that I think some of us came to truly love. And we had more of a balance in our lives. We had more control of our personal lives. We weren't going physically and wasting time in our vehicles going in and from work. I know I saved 45 minutes of a day doing that. And, during those couple of years, I would spend the time working. I was doing more things for the company during that time. Um, or like I said, I had the opportunity to get more stuff done, like laundry or dishes or whatever it was, and now that that's gone, and I think that's where a lot of this stems from is, right now in our world, since this has happened, things are much more complex than what they used to be. Everything isn't cut and dried anymore. Um, you know, Things are a lot more diverse. We are looking for flexibility. We're looking for that work-life balance. We're looking for a different way to experience our lives. And when we're happier, that can go to the job as well, and is a benefit, a huge benefit for a company. But unfortunately, let's face it, companies and I'm talking about upper management, I'm talking about not so much the middle managers, they're getting the guff from the higher up, so I'm talking more about upper management. They don't want to hear reality. In my position as a buyer, nobody wants to hear reality. I tell it like it is. I'm either the hero or I'm the bad guy. There's no in between for a buyer. You're either, being the hero, making that miracle happen, or you're the bad guy and it's all your fault. There's no in between. But I think the problem is companies in the United States, I can't speak for companies abroad, companies in the United States, you almost feel like you're cattle just being herded around. You get the feeling like you can always be replaced. You don't matter. You don't make a difference. They can just get another person in your place. Everybody's dispensable. And all they want to do is look at a number on a piece of paper these days, even more so than what it used to be. If it's not a number on a piece of paper that looks good, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. And if you try to mention something like that to them, they just go off the handle and they just start yelling and ranting and raving, and they just get very angry. And what they need to understand is companies need to understand that the world is changing, and it's changing very quickly, and it's changing, I think, in some ways for the better. Not always. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. But I think sometimes there are changes for the better. If you have a happy employee, if you have one that's not as stressed, that has a way to be in an environment to do their job, where they're more relaxed and they can focus and be more efficient, or have a mix of that, with the work environment, give them a break a little bit. Especially if they're a great employee and they're giving you 110%. They deserve you to go a little bit the extra mile. They want to see you go outside the box a little bit and recognize them. And that's not something it's not a number you can put on a piece of paper. But companies aren't going to listen to someone like me. I'm just a little schlep. I'm nobody important. I never have been, and I don't pretend to be. I just do the best job that I can, that I love to do, and I want to be productive. I think not everybody, but I think the majority of us do want to be productive. We want to have that self-gratification. And companies need to understand that. We've had a taste of something different, and it's something that in some ways works. In other ways, it doesn't. People are taking advantage of it. And like I said, I have a beef about that. But a lot of people aren't. And like I said, if they're good employees, they give you 110% in the office, and you didn't see any changes during those 3 years, and they were doing a hybrid or whatever. Cut them a break, cut them some slack. And yes, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. But there's a lot of people out there who are in my position, and who are great employees and they deserve it. Work with them. Try something unique. Do something different. Companies can't work the way they did back in the 1940s and 50s and 60s. You got to bring it up to the new century, people. Companies need to wake up and make these changes. And the intellectuals need to wake up and start coming up with all these off the cuff, bizarre reasons, for whatever reason, and ask them the why and provide us 100 reasons. That's ridiculous. We can all see from a day-to-day perspective what it is. Companies aren't moving with the times. They're not changing with the times, and that's the problem. We need to do that in the United States. We need to get to that point and move on. There you have it. That's how I feel about it. So this is the point where I say, I'm going to give you my teaser for next week. I am going to talk next week about why I feel humility is vital. I've seen some things lately, some things that have happened with some people, and I just I'm annoyed about it. And I thought, you know what, that's a good topic for my live stream. So next week, I'm going to talk about having humility and why it's important and why it makes a difference for a lot of reasons. So, and one other thing, little teaser, in the next coming weeks, we have a holiday coming up. July 4th is coming up. It's coming up very quickly, which I'm glad for because I'm off on the 4th and the 5th. But there is a very good chance that I am going to have a guest host on July 6th for my live stream. I'm really hoping and excited. I hope it's going to happen. And there's maybe even a little chance I might even have 2 co-hosts. It'll be a first. I'm going to see if I can make that happen. But there might be 3 of us on the live stream on July 6th. So stay tuned for that. And it's going to be a good one. I'm not going to say the topic yet because I want to make sure that I'm at least going to have one of my co-hosts here. Hoping on both, but we're gonna see. So with that being said, I'm going to end like I always end, as by saying, we can do this. We got this. I can, and I will. And you can too. We're in this together. We've got through some rough times, and we're going to keep doing it. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining me. Whether you're watching the live or the replay, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting me, for being here, and I hope I'm helping you out. So until next Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, please stay safe. Have a great week next week. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And all of you,